Yeah, I tried to slip that one in the old recording in progress when you guys were cracking the funnies. You were.
Well, hello, Mitch. Hello, DT.
Hey, what's going on, Marcus
I was gonna,
Aurelius, the
I was gonna
Stoic
say
among us?
hello. See, now you're really confusing us. I was gonna say hello, gentlemen, but I didn't want you guys to just like look at me like what?
Like,
What?
who walked in?
But you brought up and we're because I was this episode today is going to be called I think tentatively the street where you grew up. But you brought up something, Holly, about streets specifically when you mentioned, I believe, the 100th anniversary. Well, you didn't mention it, but it is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. Did you guys know that?
Yes,
I
I
did
do.
not. I did not.
And I've debated on. I probably won't do the some of the tours that they're doing on it because it'd be too crowded or whatever. But there's the Route 66 Association and a bunch of groups are doing car tours across it, whatever, where you can join in and you get a T-shirt and a plaque or whatever. So, but you guys know I did the trip before years
Hmm.
ago, and
Oh yeah,
great
it
time.
was well documented.
I recommend it to anybody, but that's there. That Route 66 is only close to the street where we lived.
Yeah.
Didn't part of it go through? Like,
Now, closest that
No.
probably comes to us is somewhere out south by Pontiac.
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, I see. Because I thought I liked because like when we were like younger and we had just gotten our licenses out on Route 80 by the small town where we lived, they had the roadside telephone booth,
Hmm.
and you could not a booth, a telephone. You could pull off the road if you needed to use the phone.
Emergency phone.
I
But
forgot
later
about
on,
those. Every
yeah,
so
they
many
were still
miles,
out
like
there.
yeah, where you broke down at. Yeah, I'm at the blue booth at mile marker whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of anniversaries, I heard I knew, but it's January, so I wasn't putting the math together yet. The 250th anniversary of these United States. But do you guys remember the 50 years ago when we had the sesquicentennial celebration
I
in town?
I
Do.
do. I
Because I
do.
was thinking about that today. I mean, because we'll talk about the street where you grew up on. That was one of the most, I think our town did it very well. And,
It was a
we were
lot of
13,
fun.
14 years old. They did the mustache contest. They did everything celebrating. It was a great time to be alive in North Central Illinois in America at 200 years. I'll say it.
It was a cool place. It's small town
Yeah.
USA. When you think about our town, and you talk about the street you grew up on, when you think about our town, you think a little dump. Most people think about it, but our town of, I don't know, DT, you probably know more about uh, the history of our population when we grew up, but it was right around 4,000, maybe a little bit less. But our town had a theater. It had its own movie theater for a little
Good
bitty
theater.
town. So I mean,
The
it
Mars.
had
Yeah.
its own swimming pool. For a small, which was a bigger town thing. That was not a luxury that other towns of that size had, and wonderful places to meet and congregate. And it was a cool time. It was a cool time in life.
Yeah,
Well, I
there's a
mean, they feel wonderful now, but like you're looking at it through a filter, right? I mean, they're probably pretty ordinary.
I'm looking at it because I think people were more engaged back then. I think people
And I don't
cared
know,
more back then.
do you
I
guys, I mean, DT, you might have some numbers, but I thought we were around 5,700 people, not 4,000.
we peaked up probably depending on which way you come into town. I still live there much of the time. And so there's
Well,
four roads coming into town, and they used to all have a different population number as you entered.
no kidding.
Those
Yeah,
signs aren't
so
cheap.
anywhere from 4,800 to 5,500, depending on which way you came into town. Um,
Which way the wind blew.
yeah, so
See, so for all of me,
I
I mean,
think
I
now
live
it's
in
about
Austin.
4,800, and I think it was probably peaked somewhere in the 1970s before people had to leave for their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a small burg, and I mean, and we had things like the Illini State Park. I think people take that for granted. We had a state park next to our little town, and it's still such a cool thing. Matter of fact, when I go back home, I visit it every time. Uh, and
But do you recall the last time you were home?
uh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was when
And you
my
called it home too.
Yeah, I did. It was when my mom passed.
See, I think for me, like we all we know now we know, but only one of us was really born it. I know you weren't born at like by a midwife in town, Ollie, but you were
Yeah,
born at the hospital and you lived all your life in Marseille.
I did.
So
I did.
I came from Chicago. DT came from Southern Illinois via Seneca, which is a town next door. But um, it's interesting how for me, I mean, it's when I say home, I think of Chicago right away. I don't know about UTT.
No, Marseille's is home. It was probably my my grandparents on my maternal side, their families came there um, uh, somewhere prior to 1920, depending on which member or whatever, for work at there was a certain shingle.
Certainty. Yeah.
So that
Oh, a
my
certainty. Is
great
that a roofing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a family that used to be in town, Miller. Their descendants kind of invented the granular stuff on the shingle. So if you find an old shingle package in the museum down there, it'll have with Millerized or what something like that. Yeah, Miller family, somebody there, hey, let's put sand on it or whatever.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, that along the river. So we're a river community. There's one of the largest rivers in the Midwest or in the United States. The Illinois River comes through there. There's rapids there. There's a dam and a hydroelectric plant. So it was
Yep,
kind of
yep, lots of
ideally
dams.
located for that. And then a bunch of industry started up there
Yeah.
because of the river.
My parents came to town. I think, first of all, it was exactly, I think, equidistant between my dad's parents in Southern Illinois farm country, my mom's parents in Chicago. But also, I think we came there in the mid 60s because at that time, even though I was like 2 or 3 years old, I was already in a gang, my mom found out. So they figured, let's get these kids out. But they didn't realize though, because I think you guys can relate, it was just like less of a gang and more of a club. It was the White Castle Club. At 3 years old, we would take our tricycles up to White Castle. That's all it was. That's all.
Yeah,
But
so we're from
what?
the era of the small town corner store. It's kind of, I had one of those books. I still have it at home, at my other home, but that list all the businesses that were in town,
Mhm.
its founding or whatever. So, it came out a few years ago, and so
Oh, I've got one.
yeah, there were maybe over a dozen stores in town, so that before the automobile, well, I mean there was the main street that
Mhm.
had all the stores, whatever had a you could get your horse shoed up there or whatever at different times, but when we grew up, you could still buy clothing in our little town.
Absolutely.
We'd go up
Oh
there, you
yeah.
bought your Letterman's jacket, you bought your jeans, you could buy shoes at the shoe store. There was
It was
bowling,
Shots, wasn't it? Shots shoe store,
um,
something like that.
Stoltz's,
Stoltz's had the
Stoltz's.
shoes.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
Shots was the pharmacy.
the pharmacy. Yeah.
yeah, so there were different department stores. The we
A
had a
high-end women's
Great
store.
Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company. The A&P store
Hmm.
was the kind of a new big store that formerly sat on the corner next to the show, the movie theater. We called it going the show. Prior to us, prior to our childhood, there were three movie theaters in Marseilles.
What?
So do you remember
Wow.
how the shape of the by Gleason's there was like the ticket window from the former Ritz Theater, and
I
Oh,
do
the Ritz.
remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
yeah.
and
Now that you
then
bring it up.
there was another one in one of the off one of the side streets, I guess, back in the 20s or 30s or something. So the Ritz must have closed down in the 50s or 60s. The Marquee was still up, and then they took that down probably in the early 70s. But our town was Marseilles, and it had the Mars Theater from 1936, and that's where I saw whatever Eat My Dust and all those movies from the
Ab
70s, Orca,
absolutely.
whatever. You went to the show every week, um, double features and all that. So um, kind of I mentioned before that I kind of worry about the socialization that kids have nowadays versus when we were kids.
Well, what are you thinking? Like, because you understand, like you mentioned, what their lives are like now. What did it feel like? Can you guys remember, like when you were kids, like what the daily life kind of felt like? Let's just pick a like say 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old.
I had pretty much routine. Yeah, once school started, I had a routine. I had to get myself up, get myself ready, whatever. What there were TV shows I watched every morning. Ray Rayner. I
Yeah,
watched
I
if,
think
But
we
it
all
felt like,
watched Ray Rayner, Garfield Goose. You know, in the winter
yeah,
time, we got to see the school closures and the Flying Ed Kavanaugh. You know, we didn't even
that's
know what traffic was. There's no traffic in our town, but you
that's
remember
right.
the helicopter and they would say, you know, traffic's backed up into Dan Ryan. We didn't know what that was. We lived in a small town 80 miles from the city.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, we'd watch Clutch Cargo Cart, you know, some crappy cartoons during
Diver Dan.
dinner while you're getting ready to go to school.
yeah, we thought it was funny because we could call him Diaper Dan. Ooh, we were crazy.
And and so your boundaries, you know, obviously changed every year. When prior to school, or you know, up until fifth grade, the kind of a cool thing about our town, three grade schools, west end of town, east end of town, and the middle of town
Yeah,
that
we
were
all went to a
that
different
were
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
K through five.
Hmm.
So my boundaries kind of were from my house to the school, which was about 3 blocks, a little over 3 blocks away.
Hmm.
Play on the playground even when school isn't in session on a Saturday or after school. You go up there
Yeah.
and play, you know,
You'd
on
think
your
it'd be like the last place you'd want to be, but that's where we
It's
were.
I always spent time around school because Lincoln School, uh, I also introduced me to the greatest thing, the creek. And we played in
Oh
the
yeah.
creek. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, go take the creek all the way up into Glenwood. You could
Yeah.
go right up into Glenwood Farms and
So I went
oh,
to your creek when I would visit my grandmother in the center of town, Gum Creek, I think that's called, isn't it? That runs up there in the
Back in the day, yeah.
yeah.
They used to actually have Indian battles over the
So,
good old Dumb
you know,
Creek.
I had a creek down there that's you know, my store was Bima's Ivy Way,
mhm.
and the creek was just beyond that, behind Stricker Courts and you know, over along the railroad tracks and stuff. And so we played on the railroad, all the stuff that you would think a parent nowadays. So yeah, that's right. It was
Well,
great. No,
they would.
no pads.
I try not to lose, to tell myself not to use bad language, but there's no other way to put it. Today's parents would shit their pants if they
Yeah,
knew
Oh,
that we were out playing on a railroad
how many
track.
times do we pile in the back of a pickup and,
right.
and go to
Oh
and
yeah,
go
oh
get a
yeah.
root beer at the root beer
Oh,
stand
Right
or
in the back of
something?
a station wagon with that rear window rolled down, so all the carbon monoxide's coming
Oh
in
my gosh.
on your way to.
I can show you a scar on my left arm from riding in the back of them damn pickups.
Yeah,
But all this stuff felt normal to us,
yeah,
though.
it
It's like
was normal.
you know what
It
else
So
felt normal?
there was
I
no
was thinking
alternative
today.
to this.
it
You
actually
guys remember
felt
like around
it.
dinner time if you're out playing around and stuff. But I swear it's like you could always tell when someone's mom was making pork chops and fried potatoes because I was like, oh, that smells so good. So the smell of dinner cooking around that time kind of gave you
Yeah.
an idea. It was almost time to wrap it up,
Well, for most people, for my house, it was like whenever the Swanson pot pies went into the oven, and we
which
would
was
know
a damn fine
to
pot pie.
Yeah.
well,
So, but in
oh,
reality, I remember thinking it was a treat to eat a TV dinner, or
oh my
especially the
gosh.
Oh
TV
yeah,
dinners. They were 10 for $1, the banquet TV dinners. And for a treat once in a while, we would have a TV dinner. And you thought
yeah,
that was
exactly.
living large.
Mitch's dad told my mother, "Quit feeding this child things out of aluminum." He says, "Quit." He goes,
I don't that doesn't surprise me at all because growing up the son of a chiropractor, he was
he's like,
all
this,
about holistic health. He was all about way back then. I mean, because we sometimes we didn't get treats. We would have like a wheat germ lollipop. Like, come
oh.
on, mom,
Well,
come
you
on.
always got treats when you went to your dad's when you went to your dad's office. You always got like some sort of a lemon vitamin or orange. You
Oh
got
yeah, those were
vitamin
good.
C.
Those were the vitamin C pills were pretty
Yeah,
good.
I always go in.
But yes, part of that you're talking about the smell, the scent of childhood for us was so now we live in a pretty sterile environment. Your windows, I guarantee, I bet all three of us right now, our windows are all closed up.
It's
Oh
cold
no.
as
Our
hell.
air is conditioned in the winter, summer, spring, fall, whatever. That was not the
Yeah, we'll
case in
grant you that.
the 1960s and in the early 70s before we got air conditioning. Everybody's house was open.
Yeah, you had
So,
winter windows and summer windows.
yeah, so for 8 months of the year, you know, you couldn't wait for spring to air the house out.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah! That's
Aired the
why I
house
still do it
out.
today.
So,
I try to hesitate cooking casseroles and stuff because I know my windows are going to be closed all winter long. So I don't want my house to stink like a casserole.
yeah, so just picture the meals were not something that came in a like many of my meals now are pre-prepared, processed food in a cardboard thing or whatever in
Yeah,
my
I'll
freezer.
grant you that. Yeah, without a
So
doubt.
then every meal was homemade except for maybe once a when I was real young, we didn't have enough money. I don't know if we ate out once a month.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh gosh,
but
no.
all the meals, it doesn't matter if the bread was, and biscuits were homemade, the breakfast was homemade, the pies were homemade. There was dessert every day. Um,
Yeah, it was kind of looked askance. Like if you
had
didn't cook at
chicken,
home, it's like,
meatloaf, roast, everything, something was on the stove cooking all the time and everybody else's house too. So you got the whiff of that all the time.
I
I
think it's
was
all.
such a lucky child because if it wasn't for all of your parents, I would have starved to death. That's,
Oh, hell,
that's
yeah, it
exactly
was a battle finding food at our house with all them kids
if
running around.
well, but Tim's was the only one. You couldn't go to Tim's house because it was such a crew there. It was like portioned out. Like there was a fight to lick the bowl. But like if it wasn't for Betty Blue and Betty Ball, I probably would have starved as a child.
All the house. Because I'm gonna remember going to Pinky's house. This is gonna end up gross, so I'm just warning you guys. But when we, but his mom learned how to make Rice Krispie treats, and I was
Mm.
staying overnight one time, and she had made two 13 by 9 pans, and me and Pinky ate a whole 13 by 9 pan ourselves. And to this day, I swear to gosh, the following day was the biggest 3 pound poop I'd ever taken in my life. It was like,
How could you not eat an entire fresh baked batch of Rice Krispie treats or any kind of, nowadays if somebody were to make some of those treats and recipes from my childhood, I would still bogart that stuff. I'll call it stuff.
well, it's
It's
also because I think what if you're talking about people cooking meals, it was also speaking to frugality. The same thing like you're talking, DT, about air conditioning your houses. My dad wouldn't turn on the heat in the fall until you went to the bathroom one time and you couldn't break through the crust of ice by peeing through it.
Yeah, it's
it's
kind of funny the ritual. I'm sure that we all had that. We're not heating the outside. Once it did come on, you better
Oh
have to
yeah, oh yeah.
close the door. But
well,
it was kind of, until you couldn't take it anymore, you have enough blankets on the bed or whatever, because I'm sure all of our parents were raised when they had to put wood on the fire and, bank the
Get
wood
a
stove
sweater.
at night.
Get
And
a
you know,
sweater.
and not everybody. There's very few. Well, I'm not going to say very few. There were a few people that I knew that had central air as a child.
Oh God,
The
no. Wow.
hodgepodge of engineering and design that went into all the houses on Bluff Street on our block, you will never find. You question whether an engineer or actually designed the house that you walked into. Our house had the weirdest shaped rooms and weirdest shaped closets. Bose's house the same way. It's like everybody's house was just, and they didn't leave room for like venting for like like so you
No,
didn't
no.
have you put a window unit in, and usually the
Well,
window units were mom and
you
dad's
had a great
room.
house. You had a great house. You had one of them big old Marseilles
It
houses
was a big
and a
house.
great
Yeah,
yard too.
so you
yeah.
guys were
But
both kind of in those big house. So did you have those radiators in your house for heat that clanked and
we had
No,
we had coal still.
we had a coal burner in the basement, but it wasn't used. We had another furnace that forced air up into
okay,
the
so
first floor, but there
yeah.
were no vents up to the second floor,
Yeah, a
really.
lot of times the vent in the second floor was a grating in the floor.
Yeah, that was
It
just
just
it.
let
Yeah,
the
just a
the
hole.
heat from the main floor go up. That's
Yeah.
so I and you guys, I've told you guys before, I was kind of funny in 1973. We moved to the newest house on my street and in my neighborhood for $24,000. My parents uh, got this home, and then so ours and the neighbors, the guys that built them was the guy who built ours was Delmer Bose, and he worked for Bourne's Blasting,
Mhm.
and they seemed like those people. So, and his neighbor was Billy Carlson, also worked for Bourne Blasting, and they built two houses side by side on some empty lots down there by the railroad tracks. And so those houses were built in, I think, 66, 67. And so when I moved in, it was 6 or 7 years old. So we had gas furnace, ducted,
Yeah.
basement you could use to like play ping pong in and stuff, and it wasn't an
Boy,
old basement.
we,
So
we had to dig out our basements, both of them.
Was our our basement was just, I mean, it was like it could be a scene of dark shadows. It was just, your basic unfinished hole in the
Yeah.
ground that
Yeah.
had, you know.
Well, you talk about those. We had to have the big houses. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, but I will call out again that we had a family of 11. So
Yeah.
when we finally got established in our small town, my mom and dad wanted to get someplace nicer after a few years. So we saw what used to be a hotel on the bluff overlooking Mars, up Glen Avenue, and that's when we moved into a really big house.
Yeah,
And
that
that
was a
house was
bit.
fantastic. Yeah, that was
We
fantastic
played
though. That was
football we
a
played
yeah,
football in Mitch's
yeah.
living room with
And
kickoffs,
my
with
and my
four
parents
kickoffs.
loved it. Yeah, they loved it.
I looked at buying that place before I bought mine, so I don't know, 27 years ago or something. And it
Yeah,
was
they
just,
remodeled it well. They did like I mentioned though, we had to dig out that basement. And it wasn't with a conveyor belt either. It was like with Mitch standing at the shovel
yeah,
downstairs and just chucking stuff.
all a sandstone bluff that was
Yeah.
initially carved out by the river. So yeah,
Well, but Bird's house right next to us, the foundation, the whole house was sandstone. I'm like, who thought of this? Like you could just see over the time before, and then when they moved, it wasn't long. The house came down, and Spicer's they put up one of their prefabs that Craig Miller bought,
yeah,
and that house basically was like a huff and puff, blow you down type of demolition for
that's
that
right.
one.
That's right. You were kind of across from Debbie Shelton.
Correct. Shelton and then Ryan's were right next to them, and then then Shelton's parents were
Grandpa,
next, yeah,
yeah,
next to
they're
them.
You
Bianca,
guys are bringing up
baby.
all kinds of names that we kind of know, but let me
Yeah.
ask you, like growing up, do you recall like occasionally people would just like disappear, like they would move, or it's like for me, I mean, when I thought about this, it was like unfortunately it was like girls I had crushes on, or or we had gone out or something, but
Well, that's why they
I can't.
moved. To
It's
be
probably
honest.
that's fair.
Maybe one or two. I mean,
But other
there's
people, like you say, like people moved out of town, DT for jobs. So sometimes our friends would just disappear. And
yeah.
Yeah,
It,
so I
do you
don't know. Our this hometown, the nostalgia trip stuff, it's we come from an era where it was different. So I mean, you could probably pick on your street. I was thinking today when I was thinking about this episode. So, my neighbor, like the guy across the street, was a World War II veteran. When I moved across from him was 28, or let's see, yeah, 28 years after World War II was over. He was working his last couple years at the paper mill at Nabisco to get his 30 years in. So he was down there, worked at the paper mill. Um, the other neighbor worked for the gas company, uh, whatever it was called then, Nicor. I don't know what it was called then. I'm trying to remember. But you had that. You had an old widow woman. You had the guy who worked for Boren's Blasting. You had a retired old couple. But yeah, I had neighbors that everybody was working within, I would think within 10 mile, all of my neighbors were, I think, working within 10 miles of our little
right,
town.
right
pretty
around town,
close, yeah.
13 if they worked in Morris.
You
Yeah.
had your odd one that worked in Joliet
Yeah.
around
So,
Aurora.
yeah. So, yeah, the people who worked the farthest worked at either Aurora or Joliet Caterpillar plants, and they would carpool, you know, four guys for 30 years,
Yeah,
on
I
the
didn't
afternoon
carpool. I
shift.
should have.
Yeah.
I was surprised because I worked. I did that commute 85 miles round trip every day for 12 years. But when I was working there, I was like, damn, that's a long drive. Until I got there and I saw people coming in from Spring Valley, from LaSalle, Peru.
Yeah.
From that's a 60, 70 mile an hour one way trip. But they
Yeah,
were taking the
a
bus like
good
you're right.
paying job when you see it, or by how
Yeah.
far they'll drive to it.
Loved
And
I loved cat. My God.
so those jobs, don't exist anymore. The ones, like I said, my dad worked at Bakelite,
Hmm.
you know, so that place closed down. A lot of guys
I
worked at Libby Owens making the
Yeah,
windshields
I was gonna say that's where my
cars. That
father-in-law
was a big
worked
employer,
at Libby Owens.
1,000 guys or
But
something worked over there.
well,
So
you talk about I mean, these old dogs you're talking about and stuff. They also, I mean, because I don't know if you guys witnessed, I did, I'm sure you did too, but they also felt that they could discipline other kids that weren't their own. Like if people
If you
in the
needed
neighborhood
it,
just screwing up.
if you think
if you're
those
acting a
hillbillies
fool,
were afraid to snatch you up and tune you up because your parents weren't around to do it, yeah, you'd be sadly mistaken.
But you know something else too is that I could talk to any of my friends' dads, and they would talk to me, and if you needed to ask a question, or you never felt like you couldn't approach somebody. And
True. That's
maybe
true.
people knew my situation too, because I didn't grow up in the normal dynamics,
Yeah.
but always made themselves available for me. One of the things that I remember in our town I thought was so cool is, so we look at social media. We had a lot of social interaction in our town that just doesn't exist today, like the Davis Drive-In, where you go
Oh
and
yeah,
get
yeah.
a mug of root beer or supper or whatever, and you could park your car and get out and talk with people. And I mean, it was great. One of the saddest days of the summer was when they closed their closed their windows for the last time, and you're like, oh my gosh, and
You can see they plop down the plywood window, the covers, and they
and,
lock them up.
It
and
was,
even the bonus, they're right by the creek. So like I could go Brad Blue's house when I was a kid. We'd get in the creek, we'd be playing in the creek and just walk it right up to
Yeah.
Davis and go and get a
yeah.
nice ice cream cone.
If I had $1 for every kid that got to play in the three creeks in town or something, I would, could retire a wealthy man or something.
Yeah,
You know,
that's it. And I had, when I worked at the Davis Drive-In, which I had to lie about my age to get into, well, because my friend Pinky, the owner's grandson, told me to lie, and I did it, and I got the job. But still, I can still remember to this day when one of my first cars I rolled up, and it was the minister Dial from town. I don't remember, you remember he had his daughter Susan Dial, but he pulled up. I put the tray on. He's like, "Can I help you?" He's like, "Well, we just need a gallon of root beer." A whole car full of kids and his wife. So I turned around. I went and I talked to Pinky. I said, "Well, I need a gallon of root beer," and Pinky was like, "We don't have gallons. All we have is quarts." So I went back to the car and I told the Reverend, by the way, that I needed that we don't have any gallons. We just have quarts. So he goes, "Then give me 4 of them." I'm like, "Oh, okay." he, he turned to everybody in the car like I was an idiot. They were all laughing at me. Susan, who I
He
really
was
wanted
sort
to
of
date
right.
Susan,
Yeah.
but he was exactly right. But
Yeah. That's like going
yeah,
someplace and, I'll have a whole chicken. Well, we only have half chickens. Give me 2 of them.
then give me.
I was watching I'm having this YouTube love affair right now because I took the free month with no commercials on it. So I watched the original Hee Haw last night, and Junior Samples and this other guy was talking. He goes, in this town, he goes, there's a man they say that in Chicago, Illinois, a man's hit by a car every 5 minutes. And Junior Samples goes, well, he's got to be pretty tired of that by now.
Um,
And I was like,
Well,
good old joke.
what I
yeah,
mean, so
go
well, let
ahead.
me ask you guys. I mean, because like I said, we could reminisce all day long, but when do you think like you kind of feel because for all of us, I think it's kind of DT still lives with it. I think he'll agree. It's kind of like the distance is forming because DT you spend part of your year not living in town still. But so when do you think it started? Like, is it moving? Do you have to move for it the distance to happen?
Well, no, with the passage of time and
Yeah.
change, makes things happen too. It could be, they don't have to be, big all at once changes. But so we started having in the, you know, 80s or whatever, where the jobs were going away. The factories were closing down and stuff. So people had to move or commute more.
Yeah.
Technology, the changes in technology. So we all remember when the tragedy of the theater closing, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, that was
That was
gone.
a tragedy.
It
The
was. And it was late. I mean, we were just in high school, or I think, what were we, freshmen when it closed? Because I
maybe a
remember the
little
last movie I
later.
saw there was Jaws.
Yeah, maybe a little bit later. I mean, so the high school itself closed. They started busing the kids to, the larger town next to it, Ottawa. Had a population of 18,000 or so. So, they consolidated the 3 grade schools into one and moved the high school kids, bus them to Ottawa in 1992. I think was the last year of the high school. So you lose a
Yeah,
sense
that
of community that way. You're not going Friday night down to the football games and, you know, joking around with all the guys when you're standing. I mean, we all remember like where you stood once you became a grown up. Where did you hang out at the football game? You weren't in the stands. You were standing down at the sidelines, down on
yeah,
the
down off the end zone. Yeah.
yeah, down towards the west end zone, and then you're sneaking out halftime doing whatever you're doing, and or whatever you wanted to imbibe
Yeah.
in the car.
You know what they're doing. They're running to
Yeah.
the car and having a Schlitz and coming back.
Yeah, so the sense of community at the age of the World War II and the Korean War and the World War, there were even some World War I guys around when we were kids.
Yeah.
So those guys are gone. So the vibe from, we had the American Legion and the VFW at one time, and those were places where dads went, or you went up and you go up there, with a member and uh, have a drink or something and shoot the breeze. So just a change in the way people socialize. There were bowling leagues 3 or 4 nights a week. We had 2 bowling alleys. We had
I was
one,
in.
one down by the high school,
Yeah.
one downtown. Um, so everything was about. We had more of those clubs that I never belonged to anybody. I mean, you had a Lions and you had a JC's and the uh, Moose, and what's the one Stewart's in now?
Stewart is a moose.
Mason.
Yeah, the Masonic Lodge, all that kind of stuff. So there were
Yeah,
more.
that was real back then.
Yeah,
Well, for me, it got to like you say, DT. You don't have to leave for it to change because when my kids left, they got both old enough they wanted to do what they want to do. God bless them. I'm proud of them for doing that. I realized that I was the only one of my family left in town. It was like, wait a minute. And then
Well,
later on, when
then the
we sold
town
that
breathed
house,
this communal sigh of relief.
I'm gonna just go ahead and stop talking. I'm gonna stop bearing my soul just because I'm teeing myself for DT to make fun of me.
Yeah, so I'm the only one of So I came there when I was 9 from Seneca. So but my grandparents lived there and aunts and uncles and all that kind of stuff. It was just a fact we got a cheaper rent on a house in Seneca. When I was a kid, we moved into Seneca for several years, and then we moved over to Marseilles.
I
And
don't know why that's still funny to me. Like, haha, you lived in Seneca because everybody used to make fun of like our town's
yeah,
better
it's
than
pretty
yours.
funny. I
Yeah.
mean, you'd think it was the Green Bay in Chicago or something like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, exactly. It's
There were
like,
always fights at the sporting events or whatever. So
oh yeah.
talk about
And you
moving.
want
You didn't move from Lincoln School to McKinley School or whatever. I didn't want to move from. I remember just being traumatized and moving from Seneca School in fourth grade to Marseille School. I
And you
never
should
got
be.
any friends or what, and then a few weeks there or whatever, you get some friends and that's all good.
what I mean, because I was going to ask you guys, but I kind of know the answer about, as you're thinking about back then, what kind of stories get retold, and we're doing it all right now. The war veterans used to live there, the morals, the way people used to live, the town. Surprisingly, how you bring up good points. I'm not saying surprisingly very good, but you bring it was a pretty strong town.
There
But
was a sense of
Mm.
unity and a sense of uh, I don't know, a sense of togetherness that you don't see. Okay, for an example, people that had stores, your Gleasons, Rafferty's, other stores like that. I mean, there are so many people that they provided furniture for. They couldn't afford to buy it straight up and didn't get loans. They didn't do background checks. They wrote it up. They kept it till you paid them off, and that was small town America. And
Well, Willard Gleason, my dad had a tab up there or something for buying the
Oh, yeah.
linoleum for the kitchen floor or buying the kitchen chairs we sat at or something. But I remember going up there and buying a fishing pole or something one time and putting it on my dad's tab.
Yeah, I think I did something like that too with the BB gun. I was like, I got in real trouble for that one.
my dad was
My
like,
dad wasn't amused either.
when I got my first bike, I wanted a different bike. My dad's like, go pick one out and took me to Gleason's. And I'm like, I saw this bike over, it was somewhere else. And he's like, nope. And and my dad was very loyal to Gleason's because they extended a line of credit to us because we weren't an affluent family. And so, I mean, my dad was very loyal. And that's what kept our town going. Loyalty to the grocery stores, loyalty to Gleason's, to the little stores in there for such a long time until the malls broke. And
Yeah.
then that kind of like took everything away.
So
Yeah,
how do you see it today? When you look back and think about, the small town we grew up in today, how does it, I mean, it
It
doesn't
just
feel the
doesn't look
same,
the
right?
same.
you're
It
not going
doesn't.
to go buy any. You you can't go buy your pants, your shoes, your shirts, your socks up there. Gleason's is closed. You can't buy your furniture up there. You
Yeah, that really broke my heart
you could
because I
buy
was at
some
Gleason's every
groceries
summer
there.
and get potato sets and onion
Yeah.
sets.
Yeah, so you can buy some groceries there, and you can go up there and eat. There's, it's all. We had a chain restaurant for 20 something years, Burger King,
Hmm.
that closed.
What?
The
Wait a minute,
Subway
hold up,
closed
hold
too,
up,
didn't they?
Yeah, and we had
hold
a
up, hold up.
Subway for about 10, and it
In
closed.
in Marseilles, Illinois, we had a Burger King.
Yeah.
Yes, you
You,
right at the
I
corner
saw
of
you
Broadway
there.
at the gas
Not
station,
inside, but
the big
Say what?
blue
Oh,
chairs.
at the Sickos down there?
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Oh
The
yeah,
last
yeah.
time I
Okay.
saw you on Mars, Mitch, I was with a guy that I worked with. I was living in Oregon, and we were back home for a meeting in Chicago, and we were filling up with gas. And I saw you and I saw each other. You were filling up gas too,
Was I
at
smoking
the
a
Citgo.
cigarette at the time? Because I probably could have been.
No, no, no,
No, I never smoked cigarettes.
no,
so
But
we had we had great taverns when we were
no.
teens, and whatever.
oh,
So we joked
we did an
before.
episode about that,
Lots
DT. We
of
did an
them.
Our
episode
city
about
sticker was
disappearing.
the city of beautiful churches, and I will
Yeah.
come back to the churches. But we also had a joke. Well, we've got more bars than churches. We're the city of, but so they were building a nuclear powerhouse during our childhood that had about 4,000 boomers that were in town, construction workers to build that place. So the taverns were going 18 hours a day at a minimum.
Yeah.
And so, and the taverns were all family owned. You could get food in most of them.
Delicious food.
Yeah, great food. So you could get fried chicken or smelt or cod all over the place. So we had,
Once it came out of the fryer, you could get
Yeah.
it.
It
yeah,
was, whew,
you weren't going to go in there and order a Manhattan. So
no.
give me a shot or a beer or and a tender Illinois Valley tenderloin that's the size of the hubcap or some
Jumbo
fried
porky.
chicken, whatever, fried mushrooms. Um,
Everybody calls DT that these days.
so so there was the social life uh, for that stuff was just nonstop. Like I said, the Legion was full. Um, um, the the other veterans place. So those places were a going thing all the time. You couldn't find a place to park on Main Street. Like I said, people were just up there banking, shopping,
Yep.
eating, drinking, whatever, doing their laundry at a laundromat. People didn't have washers and dryers at home yet.
It was alive. It was alive. The town was
Yeah, so
alive. But let me ask you, like, since you guys left, though, because like I say, we could keep reminiscing forever. But are there
Hmm.
things now that since you've left that you appreciate more because you left,
Well,
or that you
I
what
do
that you
because
could
they don't
you couldn't?
exist. They don't exist more. I appreciate the fact that we were able to do everything in town and that the stores that we purchased from. Okay, we now we have one day a year where we go small business Saturday or whatever. We support a small business, and we grew up in an environment where you didn't where Kmart was like, or going to Sears was like a big event. It was when you were doing some heavy lifting shopping or school shopping or whatever, and it was a rare event where you even went to do that because you could get that, all your gym wear and whatever you could get downtown in Marseilles, and all that stuff is gone. And I think what looks different for me is when I come back and I feel like it's so foreign is I forget everything's grown since I left. So it looks all bushy and different, like the trees
Oh, you
and
mean
stuff
like
are.
literally grown,
Yeah,
like
and one
trees?
thing I remember about our street was like in the summer when the leaves were out, everything was so beautiful and lush, and in the winter it was the ugliest street. Our street was the ugliest, no leaf, just a bunch of dead-looking trees on the
climate
hill.
wise, it's still the same. So it's beautiful in the fall. The
Oh
brook
yeah,
is right behind my house and it's gorgeous colored, the maples and all that kind of stuff. And you're raking your leaves and looks great. Once everything falls off the trees and the sky turns gray for 4 months, it's it's hideous.
yeah,
Um,
I like how you said four when you know damn well it's six.
yeah.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, till stuff starts budding in April from whatever from November to April, it's pretty hideous. Um, but the change of seasons, so now two of you live where the change is not as like it was when we were
Oh,
kids, where it's
it's
not
not as pronounced. You
No,
can't really
as
see.
pronounced. I still love the change of and one of our other people that joins us on here a lot, Mart, the professor will come up to my house in the fall or the winter sometimes because he wants to see the snow, or, people come leaf peeping, up by where we live at the famous Starved Rock State Park,
Sure.
or, any of the parks around along the, it's great to go play in and stuff. But um, that stuff we were talking about community. So our town, the beautiful churches. So back in that era too, you guys may not have joined in, but going to church was, I would say, 70% of the kids we went to school with went to a church on a weekly basis. Maybe a higher
We had to
number
go to
than that.
we had to go to
And then there was
catechism too.
Then there was Bluff Street. Well, I don't know. I don't know. You guys went. I mean,
Yes.
the people
Oh,
like,
my family, we all went to the Baptist, but I knew the Greers went to the Nazarene, or the Couch family. They were Nazarenes. Which kids went to the Catholic church? My friends that had to go to the catechism or whatever. So, but there was another thing where you're one day a week you're doing stuff that's communal, and so you're on the same team with a group of people or whatever, if you want to put it that way. And so, like I said, the way the country changes, I don't know if it's ever been lower when church attendance, and so there's it's a real change in the way the cultures is from you know then till now.
one of the things that we had back then as well, and I truly miss it because Starbucks didn't replace us at all. Carol's Variety was more than just a coffee shop and a place to pick up a newspaper or some,
Yeah, I mean
bric-a-brac or whatever.
it was Stickles for a
Yeah.
whatever for a millennia, and then Carol's had it, and
It was a social media hub of Marseilles. It was the morning hub. And God, the world's problems were solved at that big cable round table, they had back
I
there.
loved the
I gotta
small
say,
town coffee shop, that one and some of the other ones, because
Yeah.
I would go. I might get off work at night shift at a factory I worked at or something at the time, and go have breakfast. And it was kind of funny, the farmers and the joking around with the waitresses. So it didn't matter. So I would go a lot to Betty's. Betty Lowry had a place in the morning, and there would be some old farmers in there, or Johnny Armstrong would be in there. He was 90
Yeah.
years old. Um, and so they would, we're talking, joking around. The waitress, everybody in town knew Vicky Fleming.
Vicky Fleming, yeah.
You know, you say something about I need more coffee, and she might tell you to kiss her ass. She'll get it when you're when she's good and ready to give it to you or something.
Yeah.
if you can make it out off that cigarette voice of hers, because
Yeah.
she was a
So
great lady, but she was always
Yeah.
never without a cigarette. Yeah, it's like
and you just don't meet characters like that if you're getting coffee from your barista, or
yeah,
No.
but I mean,
to go
since
you're
like you
living a to-go
like you
life.
say, Deke, work didn't force me out of town. An opportunity, gave me the opportunity to leave town, and
Sure.
that's why I like we all talk about these people that we met, but I've met a lot of people ever since I've left. I'm grateful for that, and I don't think I would have had if I had stayed. I think my opportunities would have been limited.
I needed to change. I needed to change, and it helped me appreciate what I have now. It helped me maybe reminisce and appreciate more in retrospect what I had then. But I knew that I couldn't stay in Marseilles
Yeah.
and develop as a human being because it
Well,
just wasn't going to happen.
that's a great way of putting it though about respecting or appreciating what happened then to get you to where you are now. Because I think back then we needed we were all growing up. We all agreed that we what we learned early was routine, and we needed routine. We needed rules. We needed guidelines. That's the kind of stuff you need when you're too young and you don't know that there's other choices out there. But that helps guide you along the way. And I think we all had a good good. I was going to say a good growing up, but I don't know what you
Just so
call it. But
much, just so much danger that exists now that didn't exist back then. I mean, now,
supposedly.
well, suppose whatever what I don't see now is I don't see moms and dads kicking their kids out of the house in Orlando and say go play and stuff like that. You never see kids in the summer. And my parents, maybe it was just parental style, I don't know, but they were like, get the heck out of the house. I don't want to see you. Quit going in and out. Quit
Yeah,
going in
my
and out.
parents never read a psychology book on how to raise a kid.
Yeah.
you know,
I remember my parents locking the screen door behind me when I left. Like,
yeah, I would
you're not
get
coming
locked
back
out of the
again.
house.
My
Yeah,
mom,
you would get locked out.
At some age, we were forced. I remember the way my dad put it, we were forced to get on cable because the antenna didn't work where our house was. You couldn't receive any stations, and where we lived before, we got, you know, 2579 to CBS, ABC, NBC via antenna. But when we moved, we had to get cable TV, and I just thought that was, all of a sudden I've got Speed Racer and some other crap after school, and I want to do that, and he's not having it. Get outside, you know. I don't care if it's 900 degrees or whatever. Get outside, and the door would get locked. And especially if my dad works rotating a swing shift, you know. I don't care where you go, but you better not be out in the yard making noise because I've got to sleep today. So,
yes, that was a
so
big thing.
you were
That
locked out, and I don't know. They just didn't seem concerned. Yeah. Oh, my poor 9-year-old's locked out of the. No, that's where I want him. I don't care. He can go eat a frog or something. He should have ate a good breakfast if he's getting hungry.
my mother was so hideous that when she worked midnights, if you tiptoed, cars slowed down when they passed her house. If a jet flew over the house, you could bet somebody from United was getting called, getting yelled at.
I'll say it right now. I loved your mom and she loved me.
You know what? My mom was a very lovable person to other people. And because she was the party mom, and she enjoyed that attention, and so she played off that. And that was her gig. And it's just unfortunate that I never had a relationship with her.
Uh,
It's
where'd your
and
mom? Where'd
Well,
your mom work? I,
well, my mom worked at Bakelite
that's what I
for,
thought. I
yeah.
thought she was over there.
Remember the Christmas parties that they
Yeah,
had there?
yeah.
Oh
She.
my
no,
gosh,
hold
those
on.
were so huge.
We got to stop, you guys. We're gonna reminisce into a 3 hour episode. But I really enjoyed taking the time this afternoon to go back and I mean, because we talk about it, we know where we're from, and literally like the inside, we know where we're from.
Back to the
So wherever
Future.
we move to, we still know who we are, and I think that's a lot that we got from the little street where we grew up.
And and the last thing that I remember that I think is
Oh,
really
for
cool
Christ's
about
sake.
our childhood is Bozo the Clown. Just gotta love Bozo the Clown.
Go ahead, hit it. You
One
can't
of
leave without a
I
clown
was going to
reference.
say the one thing. So you guys have been able to have a clean break. I only am away part of the year. I still need some of that in my life to go back to, sitting at the same bar stool on Monday nights at the Illini Lounge with people that I've known forever, or going to Sam's Pizza once every couple of weeks. His son asked me, "Hey, how come you never get delivery or carry out?" And I said, "Well, because if I did that, I wouldn't have to talk to your parents for 40 minutes before
Yeah.
they would hand over my pie." But I like talking to his parents for 40 minutes, the ritual of, that stuff. So I still need some of that small town in my life. I
Well,
can't, I
see,
don't want.
I may too because today my plan is once I'm done with this, I'm going to go to the gym. But after that, I'm going up to a little place called the Little Longhorn Saloon. It's a dump. They've got $3 Lone Star beers, but there's a good band this afternoon, so I'm giving it a shot.
Yeah, but do you know all the people there? I know all the people that sit at the one that I go to. And
I'm gonna admit I
a
don't
couple
know
hours
everybody
a
in
week
Austin,
of them is
Texas. Yeah,
plenty.
I don't.
You know, a couple hours a week of them is plenty, but I need that couple hours
Phil, have you
occasionally.
run into Joe Rogan?
Not yet. I've run it. I've been downtown and come home and seen that he was in town. Does that count?
Because he lives there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Matthew
they're
McConaughey lives
neighbors.
here. Sandra Bullock lives here. It's only a matter of time for me and Sandra because where she's single, I'm single, and what's age appropriate.
Oh,
So
let's cut this
appreciate.
episode off. It's getting into
All
fantasy.
right. All right. It's gone from reminiscent to fantasy land. So,
Wow.
gentlemen, thanks again for taking the time. Looking forward to it. We got to do something like this again, maybe live and in person.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, have a great one, guys.
See you guys.